Hey everyone, I'm Megan Scheider. I'm a partner in our firm's technology, manufacturing, and transportation unit, and I'm also the co-leader of the firm's artificial intelligence attorney team. We are delighted to welcome so many members of our alumni community to today's program. We hope you had a chance to read some of the spring newsletter that should have hit your inboxes yesterday, and we look forward to providing future communications as well. Today's program is the first of our 2024 Alumni Academy webinar series, and I was so excited to see the names of so many old friends on the registration list and was looking forward to seeing your faces until I realized that in this webinar format, I would not, in fact, be able to see your faces. So let me offer an opportunity to connect in person. This is probably of most interest to those in the Chicago area, but certainly anyone is welcome. We will be presenting to your fellow in-house lawyers and other interested professionals for a seminar on artificial intelligence at the Waldorf Astoria in Chicago on May 23rd from 10 to 3 p.m. The details are on the slide and we would love to have you. The registration form will be in the webinar console of today's presentation for anyone who is interested. Okay, speaking of the webinar console, it is at the bottom of your screen. It has multiple application icons for your use during the program today. If you have questions during the webcast, please submit via the question box. We will try our best to answer them during the webcast today, but if a fuller answer is needed or we run out of time, we will certainly answer it later via email. All of the materials for this presentation are available in the program materials folder. This program has been approved for legal education hours. To report your hours, click on the CEU icon at the bottom of the screen. A certificate of attendance, including course numbers, will be emailed to you tomorrow, along with a recording of the webcast for watching and sharing. Toward the end of the program, be sure to complete our survey. It's very short, and we use what you have to say in those surveys to plan future programs that are most applicable to your business needs. Joining me for today's webinar are Meher Moradian and Tom Hutchison. Meher is a partner in our real estate development and construction business unit, industry unit here at the firm, and a member of our artificial intelligence attorney team. He has presented on AI at ICSC and US Law Conference and the USC Law School's Real Estate and Business Forum. Meher focuses much of his practice on complex, high-stakes commercial litigation involving breach of contract allegations and other contract-related causes of action. He works primarily in the real estate world, dealing with commercial leasing disputes, real estate and title fraud, and breaches of contract involving construction vendors, suppliers, and manufacturers. Tom is our firm's Director of Data Science and Artificial Intelligence. Before joining Husch, Tom spent 5 years leading the data science and AI team at O'Reilly Auto Parts, supporting the Fortune 300 company's various units, including marketing, supply chain, IT, HR, legal, and store ops. Prior to O'Reilly, he spent a decade developing data and AI systems in the medical supply industry and got his start in tech as a new media producer for the NPR affiliate in Southwest Missouri. He holds the world's only bachelor's degree in mathematical aesthetics. And when Tom presents, he can tell us what that means, because I have no idea. But Tom also holds a more common but obviously useful master's degree in applied mathematics. Tom is going to start us off with an introduction to AI and how we got here, as well as some use cases for AI in various industries and what we might expect to see in the future. We'll then transition to Meher to discuss the legal implications of using AI. And then finally, I will wrap things up with an update on legal developments in the world of AI. With that brief preview of the agenda, I will hand it off to Tom to get us started.
All right, thank you so much. So mathematical aesthetics was a triple major interdisciplinary degree it was a philosophy, graphic design, and applied math degree. So basically they said, hey, could you please quit earning credits and graduate already? And so I had to wrap everything up into one big thing is how that worked. Okay, so I'm going to start everybody with our introduction to AI and essentially give everybody a bit of a foundation about what is going on in the field and where the field came from. So artificial intelligence is a branch of mathematics and computer science, and it's a very large branch of academic study. It includes natural language processing, computer vision, robotics, knowledge representation, even theory of machine consciousness, for the more metaphysical aspects of it. But there is a sub-branch of artificial intelligence that's called machine learning, and that's really where our interest is. It's the field or the branch of artificial intelligence that all of the great advancements we're experiencing right now are coming out of. So machine learning are a series of mathematical techniques that essentially allow computers to find patterns in data. And that works by, we give it huge amounts of data and say, this is the pattern we're kind of looking for. What can you find in there? And it is able to suss out those patterns and match and then identify that pattern when it encounters new data, which we call generalization. The key thing to understand here is that all the AI used in industry and by Husch is in the branch of AI that's called machine learning. But for our purposes, we're just going to say AI and machine learning and let them be interchangeable. That's really one of the key things to understand. So if you hear me say machine learning, because I've been doing this for 2 decades, and we always called it machine learning up until a couple years ago, and now we always call it AI. So if I slip up and call one for the other, just understand that AI for our purposes is machine learning and vice versa. So it's been around for a long time, and the technology that we are using in large language models today and generative AI that is causing the AI revolution that we're experiencing was first proposed in 1943, and that was the McCullough-Pitts neuron. And essentially, it's just a little mathematical trick that allows you to represent multiple pieces of information coming in and a single decision being made. So it's a cool little math trick, but it hasn't really been very useful for the last 80 years. And the reason for that is that it requires a huge amount of computation to make a lot of these things work. In 1950, Alan Turing published the paper Computing Machinery Intelligence, where he essentially posited, would it be possible to use these tools and the other things that we know to actually have a machine think? And then in 1956, the Dartmouth College Artificial Intelligence Conference occurred, and that was where the term artificial intelligence was coined. During that conference, they actually said, we're going to solve this in 3 to 5 years. We'll have thinking human-level machines in just a few years, because this is going to be really easy to solve. It turned out to be a little more difficult than that, but we're starting to make some really exciting advancements. So we talk about models a lot. We talk about large language models, and we talk about all kinds of AI models. And the thing to understand about any AI model is that it's an approximate solution to our questions. So you can see here on this plot, what we have are a bunch of blue dots, and that's the training data. That's the answers that we know that we feed into the algorithm. And then we see the red line, and that red line is the answer that the machine learning algorithm has identified. So if, for example, we put in the value 0, and we see that as the value we know, we put that into the machine, and if we look where the red line is at there, we see that it's also at 0. If we put in like 8, we see that we'll get an answer like around 3,000. And that's what artificial intelligence does. It takes a whole lot of specific data and condenses it down into an approximate solution to our questions. So we give it a bunch of values we know, and it figures out what we want to predict based off of that. But the key thing is that it's an approximate solution. Sometimes that approximate solution is very useful and very good, like a high-resolution photograph. Sometimes that approximation is not super useful, like a very low-resolution photograph. But the key thing is that AI models are only approximate answers. So generative AI is most certainly the AI du jour, and it's what we're here to talk about today. It is one of the most powerful advancements in computer science and in technology in at least the last 20 years. This is a really huge deal, and we see a lot of the things that generative AI is doing with text, and we're starting to see more stuff in vision, and these capabilities are going to change our world. Hopefully, mostly for the better, but we're going to find out together. So the reason that generative AI is happening now, and it didn't happen in the last 80 years of the existence of these techniques, it's because we just couldn't compute them. We could not, create neural networks large enough to really be useful. And so we would take those neurons and we would, build something that was, kind of useful, but it wasn't fast and it wasn't accurate. And it just couldn't get big enough. the cool thing is that in the course of video gaming, gamers wanted better and better imagery. They wanted faster games. They wanted, more photorealistic imagery. And the cool thing about that is that they use graphics processing units, GPUs, to make all the cool images that you see when you're playing a video game. Well, as those GPUs got stronger and stronger, some researchers realized, this is exactly the kind of math that we use to make neural networks. And so these researchers started using GPUs to accelerate neural networks and getting more and more powerful systems and chaining them together till in the early 2010s, we saw deep learning as a field really, really explode. And the key thing is that we have this massive computing power that we can get with these GPUs that are doing the exact kind of math that we need to do neural networks and to build generative AI tools. So before 2017, and the invention of a technique called transfer learning, any machine learning model could only solve one very specific task. For example, it might be very good at reading license plates, but it couldn't identify cars or tell a story or do anything. It might be very good at summarizing news stories, but that's all it could do. These models were, very, very, very task specific. But in 2017, a paper was published that showed a way to actually transfer the learning of one model onto multiples, allowing you to say, if I've got a model that's really good at reading text, it can also be really good at generating text and translating text, and it can also learn how to identify images and recognize images. And that was the birth of generative AI in 2017. And the models that we train ingest huge amounts of text data. And we can then use that to help it learn images and sounds and all kinds of crazy techniques. But these models are fundamentally based around text, and we call them large language models because they are very large and they are models that are built around understanding language. Now, the reason that generative AI is everywhere right now, obviously we're still in the hype cycle. We all thought the hype cycle would probably have died down by now, but it hasn't. But it's ChatGPT, which has brought us really to the fore. In 2022, OpenAI released ChatGPT, and it really made it obvious how powerful these tools were to everyone, giving us all these incredible abilities at the click of a button. So the point where we have the most powerful AI that's ever been created available on our phones at all time. So ChatGPT, OpenAI's model, the GPT class of models have been a huge boon to this industry. So let's talk about how generative AI works. And this is important to understand. It's a little bit technical, but it's important to understand because sometimes you'll use ChatGPT and it'll say something and it'll be like, why did you say that? It doesn't make any sense. Do you not just understand? Well, no, the model does not understand. In fact, these models, even though they are large language models, have never seen any language. They've just seen language converted into numbers. So essentially the way that these models work is we train them, we convert text and maybe audio or video or whatever it is we want the model to work with. We convert it into a string of numbers. That's called tokenization. But just the key thing to know is that it's just a string of numbers. There's no text data whatsoever. So if you say to a model, I'd like you to give me a recipe for a grilled cheese sandwich, the model has no idea what a grilled cheese sandwich is. It knows a set of numbers that represent the letters and parts of the words grilled cheese sandwich, but it's never seen the word grilled cheese sandwich. It knows nothing about it. It has no idea anything about the outside world. These have only been trained on strings of numbers. So the first thing we do is we convert our text into numbers, into just that string of them. And then the model will scan for patterns that it's seen before in its training data. So essentially we give it a huge, big, long string of numbers, and the model looks over that string of numbers, looking for sequences that, look kind of approximately like a solution it's seen before. And then once it finds something that's like, oh, I know how this part goes, it then uses some probabilities and an understanding of its training data to just complete the sentence or to complete the paragraph, complete the text that it's been asked to do. So we're taking text, we convert it into numbers, the model looks for just patterns in the numbers, and then completes the pattern based off of patterns it's seen before. And then that completed pattern of numbers is converted back into text and is output. There's no there. There's no thought. There's no understanding. It's just a string of numbers that are being pushed into the model The model then looks for patterns in that string of numbers and then outputs it. And that understanding gives us a good ability to help us work through the problems that, we're going to talk about later, like hallucinations and the other strange things that models can do, why they make things up. Well, they're not inventing things. They're just matching a pattern that seems similar to a pattern it's already seen before. And so it starts with the text, it gets converted to numbers, and then those numbers are identified, the pattern is identified, and then those numbers, the pattern is converted back into text. That's how it works at a high level. It's a pretty reasonable description of how it works in there. So they calculate and generate their output using only those patterns, and they know nothing. There's no thought there. So artificial intelligence does not imply artificial thought at all. It's just pattern matching taking place on very, very, very complex patterns. So how is generative AI being used? I'm going to give you some industry examples, and there's actually a really exciting one that I'm thrilled I get to share with you today in this. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about some industry examples, and then I'll tell you a little bit about some Husch Blackwell examples of generative AI. So chatbots are an obvious use. They're found in customer support tools everywhere, and with language models getting better and better, these chatbots are able to connect to more and more information, such that you can really have an effective customer service experience talking only to an AI. And we're seeing that become more and more prevalent across the world. It's still early days, it's still pretty clunky, but in 3 to 5 years, it's going to be a revolution in how we interact with the brands and products that we use on a daily basis. Obviously, marketing has really, really been impacted strongly by this, both in generating content, in analyzing content, and helping to better generalize profiles of users. Marketing is having a heyday with this, and it's freaky too because of the many issues that are brought up with IP law and with how a brand can be co-opted by AI. It's really an interesting space, but marketing is having a huge impact here. Accessibility, the capabilities of generative AI to distill visual, audio, and text information are nothing short of a revolution for people that have to use assistive devices. If you need to read a screen or you need some sort of a device to help you navigate the world, these tools are going to change everything for you, and it's very, very exciting. Translation, going from one language to another, for example, going from Spanish to English. This is an incredible ability that these models just natively have. We didn't even realize they would when they were first designed and built, but they can do this. They can go from many languages to English or English to many languages. It's really incredible stuff. We see examples of large multinational corporations using live on-the-spot translation for error reporting on manufacturing lines and helping people that are working on factory floors actually communicate back with the developers of the software in real time across languages. Very exciting stuff. Clearly, entertainment is being impacted massively, and the thing that I'm really excited to talk about just briefly is healthcare. So protein folding, which relates to drug discovery, advanced diagnostics, and so many aspects of biotech, is an incredibly challenging subject. So protein folding is the kind of thing that you would do your entire PhD thesis on one single protein and understanding how it folds, because it's a very, very complicated space. The AlphaFold model released by DeepMind in 2020 radically changed the world. We began to understand protein folding in a way that we could have never done before, to the point where massive volumes, like what would have taken human beings thousands of years to do, was done in days in our understanding of proteins. Yesterday, the third version of AlphaFold was released after 4 years, and it's shaking everyone because we now have the ability to not only understand protein folding at that single molecule level, or at the molecular level, but we're also able to understand basically all of our biological molecules up to and including DNA and RNA, and to model, predict, and understand how proteins and other chemicals will interact with them. That was released yesterday, and we're all just, those of us that are working in this space are just astounded. It's really amazing. And so that's AlphaFold 3. You'll hear from DeepMind. You'll hear more about it in the press, I'm sure, in the coming days. So how is generative AI being used at Husch? So we've got a lot of great tools that my team has built out, and that's really the focus of what my team is working on. We've developed Prompt Composer, which is similar to like ChatGPT, where you have free-form input. It's able to do vision, and it's able to provide free-form text generative AI to everyone at Husch. It's used across the firm every day. We use it to create content, edit, summarize, develop content. We've used it, going everywhere from here's a sketch of a visualization that we need to create to having the model actually write the code and deploy the visualization for us. Co-Counsel from Thomson Reuters is an AI-based legal practice support platform that really enhances efficiency and quality of legal tasks, helping to do research. This is a tool that's used across the firm by our attorneys. Really amazing stuff. I mentioned language translation. We just right before this presentation, we have we started a 500-page language translation, and it just finished a couple minutes ago. So 10 minutes, we were able to translate a Spanish document that's 500 pages into an English document in just a few minutes, and it's being reviewed by humans now. It's crazy how fast it goes. Content extraction, we do massive amounts of audio transcription with these tools, and like I said, we use it to write code. It is a huge, huge boon to all aspects of the work we're doing at Husch. We like to say, look, AI is not going to take your job, but people that are using it are going to have the ability to take your job. And that's one of the things we have to worry about, staying on top and staying at the forefront of it. And of course, that's why we're all here to learn this. So I want to take just a minute or so to give you a glimpse into the near future. And when I'm talking near future, we're thinking this summer, maybe this fall, for the release of these next-gen models. So I want to tell you a little bit about this to wrap up today. So next generation models, and we're expecting in the coming months that we're going to have access to models that are going to be able to go way beyond generating content. They'll be able to generate and execute their own plans. This is called agent-based, or I think that the new catchphrase is agentic AI. And it's going to give us the ability to create networks of tools inside the firm. And you'll see it everywhere, where you can ask an agent to complete a task for you, and it will be able to follow through and complete the whole thing. Currently, we'll say, hey, summarize this article, and it can summarize an article. We are going to be able to get to the point where you'll be able to pick up the phone. You won't have to pick up the phone. You'll just say, hey, I need to schedule a birthday party for my cousin who doesn't like clowns but likes bounce houses. And the agent will be able to make all of the necessary decisions and connect all of the necessary services to book everything you need for the birthday party and to deliver it and have the party set up. That's near future, but these tools are coming and they work. We deployed our first agentic solution recently, and it's one of those things that when you see it work, it's just unbelievable to take, for example, an attorney narrative that has lots of grammatical mistakes and lots of things that need to be fixed, have the agent pick it up, go and get the matter data, understand everything that relates to the matter data that's in the narrative, clean it up, fix it based on instructions, and then submit it. These tools are going to change everything. So we like to say that, it's going to be commonplace to say, here's 10 contracts that match, kind of what, we need. Here's who the client is, and this is what they want to do. Go. And the agents will be able to draft a new contract and then, have it reviewed by a human and send it out for client approval. So thank you all so much. I appreciate you listening to my introduction today, and I'll hand it back over to you, Megan.
Thanks, Tom. There are no questions in the Q&A box, so I think that means that you covered everything perfectly and everyone understands everything that you just said. So that's great. But if not, please feel free, everyone, to submit questions to Tom for anything that he covered in the Q&A section of your console, and we will be sure to circle back to it. But for now, I am going to turn it over to Meher to take us through the ethical issues in AI. Meher?
Thank you, Megan, and thank you, Tom, for that thorough presentation. Again, my name is Meher Meridian. I'm a partner in Husch Blackwell's Los Angeles office. I'm in the real estate practice group, or SBU, and commercial litigation practice group. And I'm going to be discussing ethical issues in AI. And we're really going to go into 4 different areas, which include duty of technology, competence, biases in AI, mistakes and fraud in AI, and then lastly, a just transition. So first, let's discuss the duty of technology, competence, and particularly Model Rule 1.1 Comment 8. And this is really a necessary slide to have because we're all getting CLE credits here. And so Model Rule 1.1 Comment 8 discusses the duty of technology and competence, as I mentioned. And so really, as we all know, a lawyer shall provide competent representation to a client. And so what does that mean? What does that require? It requires the legal knowledge, skill, thoroughness, and preparation reasonably necessary for representation. And Comment 8 really kind of takes it home in terms of the duty of technology competence and discusses that issue. And it says to maintain that requisite knowledge and skill, a lawyer should keep abreast of changes in the law, its practices, including the benefits and risks associated with that relevant technology. And there's different variations also that are covered in Comment 8, which I'll go over briefly. It specifically mentions technology competence that will impact really two important areas, confidentiality or unauthorized disclosure. It specifies that compliance may require retention of a non-lawyer professional, and specifies that continuing legal education should include technology, and then limits the requirement to technology relevant to that lawyer's practice. And by you all being here today at the HB Alumni webinar, I would argue that we are fulfilling our duty of technology competence. And let's now discuss biases in AI and what that really means. So there's sources of AI bias that have been studied, and this really falls into three different buckets. You have training data bias, you have algorithmic bias, and then you have cognitive bias. So training data bias is essentially ensuring that your data is not over or underrepresenting groups. Algorithmic bias is what it sounds like. It's essentially when a software developer has their own bias, and there may be some programming errors that are intentionally weigh indicators incorrectly. So the way that they draft the software, design the software, includes unintentionally their biases. And then lastly is a cognitive bias, as we all know, especially as lawyers. People have their own biases. And so when people select data sets, this creates a room for those biases to surface. So you've heard the statement, the AI is only as good as the data it has. And so these are three areas that are sources of AI bias that has been found. And this is taken from the IBM Data and AI Team article that was written in 2023. Then there's something called debiasing AI. So debiasing AI, debiasing refers to the process of reducing or eliminating biases in decision-making or data analysis to make them more accurate, fair, and objective. And this can involve different types of techniques such as awareness training, adjusting decision-making processes, or using algorithms designated to mitigate biases. And with the AI that's out there already, it's proving to be a very daunting obstacle and very considered socially fraught to date. And another part of the ethical issues in AI is access to AI and to the technology, to the benefits. So access really just refers to the ability of the individual, organization, or communities to utilize the AI technologies. And access can vary for various reasons, including affordability and technical expertise. But there's an equitable access to AI that is very important, and to ensure that the benefits and opportunities afforded by AI are available to all, regardless of socioeconomic status or geographical location. And this is something that's been in the news quite a bit, is mistakes and fraud. with AI. And so I'll cover a few of those issues here with you today. The first is an interesting example. So our own Chief Technology Officer, Blake Rooney, did a test in ChatGPT, I think for Megan, to show basically how it can make a mistake. And these are different than what you've heard of as hallucinations. So here you can see the prompt, you know, and you write a sentence that contains the letter F exactly 3 times, and then ChatGPT gives a sentence: the fluffy kitten frolicked playfully in the, and you can read the rest. But you know, that's an example of where it made a mistake, and it's pretty self-explanatory. There's also an issue of inconsistency, bias, and lack of context. So ChatGPT is AI trained on a wide range of internet text, but does not have specialized training. These tools generate responses based on patterns it's learned from, as Tom discussed earlier, from its trained data. However, this training data includes information from various diverse sources that are inconsistent, inaccurate, and the biases that I just discussed. Also, it may be outdated. The information it has may be outdated, and so that could lead to incomplete and incorrect answers. Here's an example of a hallucination, which basically was a group of fake citations that were provided. And this came up during when an energy log blog search was done. And I believe Tom was feeding the model code for the website and asking it to basically pull out all links for energy log blogs. And it came up with a list of all these links that, when you look at them and you read them, they look like real, actual citations or sites that you could go to. But in reality, these are all fake citations. They don't exist, but they sound real. They look real, and they're totally false. And so when you click on them, it goes nowhere. So that's an area that, an area of hallucination. And as a litigator, it's been in the news quite a bit. There's been cases where attorneys have filed briefs or motions, and they've used AI for research, and fake citations or fake cases are made up as hallucinations, and then the attorneys don't fact check that, and then opposing counsel files an opposition and identifies it as a fake case, and the lawyers have been sanctioned in that area as well. So hallucinations are definitely a real thing in AI. And the next slide deals with deepfakes. And some of you know of what deepfakes are, but here's a good example. I think that illustrates the point. So as you can see, we have President Nixon on the right side of the slide giving a speech. And this derives out of some media artists from MIT teamed up with an AI company to show how deepfakes would work. And essentially, there was a video on YouTube, and it's President Nixon giving a speech that was drafted, but he never delivered. And it was the contingency speech in the event that the Apollo astronauts never made it back from the moon and didn't return. So that was a deep fake of President Nixon giving this speech, which again, he never gave. And so there's legislation now that has been being passed in different states related to deep fakes. California, there's SB 942, and it's really more of a consumer protection type of act, where it's trying to find ways and mechanisms to identify whether videos, text, audio is created by generative AI. And there's some fear out there in terms of AI and folks losing jobs and a transition that may occur, that will occur. And that's the last part of my presentation in ethics and AI. And really, the question is, who are we displacing with these tools? How will we upskill our workforce so they can harness the new technologies and advance their careers? As we all know, generative AI, especially real estate, could potentially disrupt traditional roles and processes within industry. Think of leasing agreements, think of underwriting, those kind of issues that it will change. And there's a slide here that I think illustrates the point in terms of the fear that is out there and kind of how technology has changed our culture, our society, and really the outlook that is here is it has the potential to create new jobs, and so it will affect some jobs, but it will create more jobs down the line. And here's some examples that you can see with jobs that have been created when the telephone came out, all the way to Blockbuster Video. And so I think this is a good example of what can happen in a positive way with AI. And I wasn't around when the telephone was invented, but the pigeon may have been concerned about his job. But certainly I do remember computers taking over and the creation of engineers, software engineers, growing up in Silicon Valley, just seeing that just proliferate, and Blockbuster Video, and when the internet came out and how it just changed. And so now I think we're at the forefront with AI, with engineers, auditors, ethics. And there's another slide here, which I'll go over with you just quickly. And it focuses on the different professions. And you can see the top 3 categories, or the top 2 are in the health space. So health aides, wellness, health professionals, 30%. STEM professionals, 23%. And then if you go down kind of at the middle, you'll see legal professionals, which is us, is about 7% growth. And then there's some industries at the bottom: food services, customer service, office support, which are not new jobs that are created. But those are areas that I think will drive demand amongst current occupation and upskill our workforce. And then the last slide that I want to go over with you is, how do we safeguard against unintended consequences? So I talked earlier about the trading data bias, the algorithmic bias, the cognitive bias. So it's important to have certain filters and guardrails in place to try to either prevent those biases or cure those biases, and incorporate the right data to prevent that from happening. Thank you.
Thanks, Meher. Okay, well, I will finish this up today with an update on legal developments in the world of AI. There is so much out there. There's so much going on. This is all very exciting. Transformative technology, very powerful use cases, and lots of concerns, as you heard, about how to harness all of that opportunity and make sure it is used appropriately. So you might be wondering how in the world we are going to tame the Wild West of AI here so that developers and users can feel confident they are doing the right thing. And the answer to that is we don't really know yet. But we can tell you who is working on it. And I'm already ahead of myself on slides here. Sorry about that. Okay, so regulating AI and interpreting laws that could apply to AI is an all hands on deck situation right now. There are already laws on the books that are, without a doubt, going to be interpreted to apply to AI. There are several dozens of bills working their way through legislation right now as well, some of which are getting more traction than others, and we may see adopted sooner than others. We've got federal agencies that are weighing in. They're slapping wrists to a certain extent already. They're definitely issuing guidance. And we are even seeing some issues make their way through the courts as well. So there isn't one body or agency charged with tackling this. right now you have to think of it sort of like an all-star team, except we're pulling from all the sports and expecting them to all play on the same court. We've got a basketball player and a swimmer and lacrosse. So all of these great players in totally different fields have to work together and figure this out. But they also have to stay out of each other's way. So this is an obvious challenge because conflicts between both existing laws and those that are in the works, that's gonna be a little bit of an issue. And there's a lot of debate surrounding that we'll talk about as we go on today. Okay, so let's start from the top, though. Start with the executive order. In October of 2023, the Biden administration announced an executive order with the stated purpose of ensuring that the U.S. leads the way in AI innovation and manages the risks of AI appropriately. What really stood out from this order is a sense of urgency for governance around AI, which we obviously do not have, certainly not at the top. And there's a debate about whether we even need it, but that's a different discussion. So no one doubts that the technology and innovation side of AI is just going to fly forward. It is flying forward. The concern right now is really around how to harness that power. And the administration has charged its agencies in developing standards around several principles and values that it deems key in the development of AI in the United States. And those are safety and security, promoting innovation and competition, supporting workers, which Meher touched on as an ethical issue, advancing equity and civil rights, protecting consumers, patients, passengers, students, those groups of people, privacy, advancing the federal government's use of AI, and strengthening American leadership abroad. It's a 36-page order. You can find it online. It's an easy read, no problem. Also around the same time in October of 23, the White House Office of Science and Technology published a white paper called Blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights, Making Automated Systems Work for the American People. And this is intended to support the development of policies and practices that protect civil rights and promote democratic values in how we build and deploy and govern these systems. And we are seeing states trying to develop their own AI Bill of Rights as well. This Bill of Rights has been framed as a national values statement. It has 5 key principles and associated practices to help guide the design and usage and deployment of automated systems, and give steps that can be taken by any organization, government, big corporation, small, any type of organization to uphold those values. This blueprint is not binding. It is not policy. It doesn't in any way supersede or modify existing laws, and it doesn't really tell you how laws are going to be interpreted. And it certainly doesn't mean that you're in compliance with laws if you follow these principles. But you can read these things and expect that the values and the guidance in them are going to influence rulemakers. They already are influencing rulemakers, and that's going to trickle down and impact the private sector. So these are important reads because they kind of give you a glimpse of trends and what is to come. And indeed, just last month in March, the White House announced a set of binding artificial intelligence policies for some federal agencies intending to protect privacy and rights and safety of the American people. So although these policies, again, these are not enforceable against private sector entities, they're enforceable against federal contractors developing AI systems for agencies, but you have to keep in mind that the purchasing power of the federal government is going to encourage developers and service providers to follow these policies. So there's a huge trickle-down effect. The executive order and these policies only have force and effect within the executive branch. So the private industry isn't really impacted by them yet. But again, industry leaders should be mindful that this is probably going to be a relatively similar baseline, kind of a de facto baseline for AI systems going forward, or so we'll see. And just very, very recently, a few days ago, federal agencies have reported that they have completed the timeline that they were required to have complete by now coming out of the executive order, and they have announced all of the things that they've done and the guidance that they've issued and what they're working on. You can find all of that information at the respective department and agency websites. So definitely trickling down from the top. But there are a number of laws and regulations that are already in place that dictate the things that we can and cannot do with AI. So, for example, employers can't discriminate under Title VII federal laws, right? And the fact there's no exemption for using AI. The fact that you're using AI to recruit or hire employees doesn't change your obligations in that regard. You have to stand ready to defend a claim of discrimination that occurred via AI. And I used AI as not a defense. And there are many, many examples of current laws that are absolutely going to apply in that same way, even if they don't even have the phrase AI in the law. So there is a very interesting existing debate, or at least conversation going on about how to navigate that. Do we need laws and regulations? Do we need that? Or do our existing laws cover it, right? You already can't discriminate. You already have to protect consumer privacy, and on and on. Do we need more than that? And there are different schools of thought on that, including those who argue that it's premature to try to specifically regulate AI. It's not, they will argue or will say it's not well understood enough. It's a bit of a black box. How can you regulate something at that level of detail that you don't understand? It may be tremendous diminishing returns on regulating something that could go a million different directions. So, and others in that camp might also argue that AI regulation could stifle innovation. Then there's an entirely other school of thought, which is that we have to regulate to a certain extent. We have to have guardrails and parameters in place to protect against these most obvious risks of AI and to protect Americans and protect consumers and all of that. We have to have that, but we have to do it in a way that encourages and rather than stifles innovation. And then even within that category, there's a debate about, do we need federal legislation? Is there a risk of we're going to end up with all these states with this patchwork system of local laws, many of which will conflict, for companies that work across state lines? So many, many unanswered questions. Those are the issues, which is mostly what we're doing these days when we talk about legal developments in AI, is issue spotting. And we'll talk a little bit about enacted legislation that's actually enacted in privacy and in automated decision-making and algorithmic bias here in just a minute. But all eyes right now in this space are on Colorado. The Colorado legislature just passed yesterday. Yeah, today's the 9th. Just passed yesterday the Colorado Artificial Intelligence Act. So this is an example of what I was just talking about in terms of states forging ahead with their regulation. So if Colorado is the first state to enact legislation that broadly addresses the use of AI in what they call high-risk activities. So what that means, a high-risk activity under this legislation, is that an AI system makes a consequential decision about a consumer, whether it's in the education context or the healthcare context or finance, any of those things. If it's impacting a person, a decision for a person, it's going to fall under high-risk activities. And the goal of this legislation is to allow for continued innovation with guardrails to protect consumers. Interestingly, and perhaps not totally surprisingly, the bill does not create a private right of action, but it just sets out the duties of care on developers and deployers to use reasonable care to protect consumers from things that are reasonably foreseeable, a reasonably foreseeable risk of AI. It also creates a rebuttable presumption that reasonable care was used if the developer or the deployer followed the bill's requirements surrounding things like disclosure and documentation, things like that. And then there's also a provision that allows deployers and developers to discover and cure these violations, again, to try to encourage, proactive improvements and fixes and things in AI. So be very interested. There are other states trying to do this too. Colorado's the first. Some of the states that are trying to get this done, it may not get done this year, and they may try again in the next session, and all of those things. So lots to watch in the space of legislation. But going into specific areas of law and regulation and issues, we're going to go through data privacy, IP, discrimination, cybersecurity, and liability. And we're going to touch on each of those issues in the very few minutes that we have left. So with respect to data privacy and confidentiality, you've all heard that data is the lifeblood of AI. That's how it works. So obviously it carries several privacy concerns. AI processes personal data. It generates, sensitive information, names, addresses, contact details. That can all be inadvertently collected. It can all be inadvertently shared. It can all be inadvertently used for a different purpose than it was collected. And all of those things can result in unintended exposure or misuse of that information. So users of AI need to understand if you're complying with privacy laws. And as you can see from this map on my slide, and I'll give a shout out to our privacy professionals at Husch Blackwell and employment professionals at Husch Blackwell who are very closely tracking all of this legislation that I've mentioned about. You got to pop by our website and take a look at our state law trackers. There's way more information there than I have time to cover today. But there is legislation that's already in place that you have to comply with, whether you're using AI or not. So there are 16 different states, if I counted this correctly, with privacy legislation that is enacted in place, and you have to comply with it. And there are a number, as you can see from the map, that are actively trying to pass privacy. May not be AI specific, but they're privacy requirements that are imposed on companies. And certainly if you're using AI, there's a heightened awareness that you need to make sure you know what you're doing. So all of these are different. All of these privacy, because they're state specific or maybe even city specific, may even be more local. They all have some of the same concepts like consent, limited collection purposes, disclosure, when you're supposed to delete the data, how long you can keep it, opt out, all of those things. Those are pretty common themes. But these tend to be territory specific laws, and many of them have cross-border implications for companies that are operating all over. So it is a very complicated kind of area. In addition to compliance with data privacy laws, you need to be aware of the risk that the data won't be kept confidential, and that could put your company's trade secrets or your employees' information at risk. So obviously open source or public Gen AI is not secure. Information submitted to those tools is going to be used to train the tool. And it's important that your employees understand that if you put information in a tool, it might distribute it or disseminate it. And, you need to make sure that your employees are trained on that. They understand that to prevent company information from getting out. And that's where employee use policies and training really are important and come into place. Other providers that are not open source or public, other providers that are deploying AI, they may claim that a custom product for your business won't be disclosed outside the company, and that's very possibly true, and that it won't be used to train models outside of your company. But it's just very important that you carefully review any license or user agreements to confirm exactly what it says about how your company's data will remain confidential and not used in a way that violates privacy laws. Most companies have not really focused on how to manage the data that's going into AI. It's a big task. It's a big hurdle. There are ownership rights that we're going to talk about too in a little bit, and IP rights. And so putting together the right data set for machine learning is challenging enough. And then you have all of these things to comply with. And so having professionals, to Meher's point earlier, having professionals who are skilled and trained and getting those people to sign up for these jobs and do these jobs for us. And that might include, international skill sets, international talent, getting them to the US to keep up with this demand is really going to be something that we have to watch. Discrimination and bias. There is no question, and Meher touched on this, there is no question that AI can and will replicate existing biases, whether that's in the data on which it is trained or whether that's in the humans that are involved. And this impacts everything from discrimination in hiring to discrimination in healthcare, lending, it across the board. So there are, again, referencing and shout out to our employment professionals who are working our Bite Back blog and tracking this legislation. There are 4 states with enacted legislation surrounding AI specific usage, whether that's automated decision-making legislation, or algorithmic bias legislation, or both. So if I'm understanding all the tracking that we're doing well, there are 4 states that actually enacted legislation, or at least 4 states with local laws on this issue. But there are dozens, as I understand it, dozens of active bills on both of those. In addition to that legislation, the EEOC has issued technical guidance on how to assess AI employment tools under Title VII. It actually put out a technical resource guide that explains the application of key aspects of Title VII to the use of AI. There is the AG's office, the Assistant AG for the Civil Rights, has called on the EEOC and the DOJ and the FTC and others to work together and to battle the issues that could come up in the use of AI with respect to civil rights and consumer protection, and they're calling it a whole of government approach. So lots more to come on that. We've seen very public examples of how AI has been used and inadvertently discriminated against classes of people, and we're running tight on time. So even though they're great stories, I'm not going to go through them all. The one on the screen was well publicized. Rite Aid was found, or was alleged by the FTC at least, to have failed to implement reasonable standards to protect consumers from and avoid bias, in particular racial bias, in its facial recognition technology that it was using surrounding safety at its stores and things like that. So as part of its settlement with the FTC, it's been banned from using that technology for 5 years. Amazon was using an AI model that was trained to vet applicants by observing patterns in resumes that were submitted to the company over a 10-year period to identify traits of successful software developers and technical employees. Well, not too surprisingly, 10 years ago in the tech industry, most of those resumes came from men. So they discovered that the AI system had essentially taught itself that male candidates were preferable to women. Example after example after example of that happening. Intellectual property, IP, obviously this touches everything from in AI, literary works to artistic works and logos and products, and it touches everything. And the questions in IP are both defensive and offensive for your organization. How do you protect your trade secrets and copyrighted material or patented info that goes into a tool and comes out of a tool, or your organization being concerned about violating IP laws in your company's usage of AI. AI programs that scrape the internet for its data sets are going to pull in, just necessarily, they're going to pull in protected information. So there's concern that someone's protected works will be used to generate new IP. Is that infringement? Is that fair use? You may have heard the phrase substantially similar. All of those concepts are in play in that question. There are licensing issues in play if open source software was used. We're seeing lawsuits by alleged copyright owners against companies who trained their AI systems with open source software, but did so without complying with the licensing terms of that software. And then we're seeing copyright claims alleging that different developers are using copyrighted data to train their systems. Some of those even are attempted class actions. With respect to inventions, it's one thing we have seen of the many unknown answers to all of these legal questions. One thing we do know is that AI is not a person, and it's not going to get the same protections as persons under IP law. But there is still a very, very much a big question of how much AI intervention in human works will be allowed to be protected. With respect to cybersecurity, artificial intelligence can and will be used to enhance cybersecurity within organizations, but it is a double-edged sword because some of the fastest groups to hop on the AI bandwagon are cyber criminals. Hackers they are evolving as quickly as AI. It's much easier to use phishing and social engineering attacks to infiltrate a network and spread malware and ransomware and things like that. Identity theft, tricking employees into revealing credentials, all of that's easier and faster and can be done on a bigger scale with AI. So there is definitely an offensive use that companies need to consider, but defensively, AI will be able to help our organizations defend and differentiate threats, false alarms, minor threats versus significant threats, and the like. Liability. This is my favorite topic because as a litigator, how all of this is going to shake out in the end, I think will end up often in courts. So I guess that's good for me. Who is liable when artificial intelligence fails to perform or when it discriminates? Who bears the cost of a cyber attack or a data leak? Is it the developer or the manufacturer of the tool? Is it the organization that operates it and uses it? Is it the end user? Is it other tools and vendors that interact with it? We don't know the answer to any of those questions. We don't know for sure, is AI a good? Is it a service that allows you to look back to the provider? Is it negligence theories of liability that are going to apply to these questions? We don't know. I mean, we know what the existing law is, and we can try to apply that to AI use cases, but we'll see. How do upstream and downstream supply chains, how does that impact? Is that law going to be applied the same way? So we have to, right now we're kind of looking at existing laws to try to predict those questions. An interesting question from my chair will be whether any of the regulations that are being enacted create a private right of action for consumers. We just talked about Colorado. It does not. But even in the case of just state enforcement through the regulation, there's a question: how will findings of wrongdoing in those cases be used in litigation? Can they be used in litigation? Does it suggest or create a duty of care that wasn't there before? It'll be interesting to see how those suits pan out. I'm also very curious to see how courts handle the technology side of things to determine fault and how much expert testimony will be needed. It could add quite a bit of expense to litigation to prove different aspects of AI and to have competing experts fleshing out whether or what the other is saying is right, especially when it's developing so much and the terminology and concepts aren't even really set in stone. I have to wrap up because there's some best practices slides you can review on your own. They're sort of self-explanatory. Sorry for running you late. They'll be in the materials. So I'm going to close. This was the end of the presentation. Thank you for joining us today and being a part of our History as Valued alums. As a reminder, the program has been approved for CLE hours. To report your hours, click on the icon, CEU icon at the bottom of the screen. A certificate of attendance, including course numbers, will be emailed to you tomorrow, along with a recording of the webcast for watching and sharing. And please be sure to complete our short survey. We value your feedback and use it going forward to plan our programming. So with that, this concludes our webinar. Thank you.